Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mings, and today I welcome you guys to another Advanced Wars replay commentary. Do you guys remember the Colin main that approached me a little while back, the guy I played a match against on my channel? Well, this time I got approached by a Kanbei main, and I gotta say, like, Colin mains, as ridiculous as I think it is to main Colin, is probably even more ridiculous to main Kanbei, because he is ridiculously busted in this game. However, there is a CO that is probably even more busted, and that is Sensei. And you know, when I saw that this guy main Kanbei, I was like, you know what? Okay, let me try a match against you with Sensei. Let's see how that matchup goes, because, you know, I rate them both pretty equally in Advanced Wars 2. I rate them both as A-rank tier COs. But I must say, this game definitely put it into perspective just how incredibly broken Sensei is, and just how ridiculously disgusting he is. So let's talk a little bit about these COs, shall we? So I am playing as Sensei. He is incredibly busted. He gets a 40% firepower bonus on his infantry units, which just makes his capture phase incredibly strong. It just means his mechs can demolish any vehicles you send against him. It's just incredibly hard to go up against Sensei in the early game. In addition, he gets a whopping 50% firepower increase on his battlecopters, which just turns his battlecopters into bombers. I mean, they do so much damage. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this coins the phrase that I used in my Advanced Wars 2 tier list, the Sensei playstyle. Infantry mech battlecopter, infantry mech battlecopter. It's all you need to go up against your opponent, unless he builds very expensive units like fighters and bombers. If he does, then you'll need to build a fighter or maybe some anti-air of your own. But in any low economy matchup, infantry mech battlecopter is pretty much the only thing you need to win over your enemy. Use infantry to capture, use mechs to take down anti-air, and use battlecopters to take down everything else. It's really that simple. In addition to this, Sensei also get +1 movement on all of his transport units, which includes APCs, landers, and transport copters. So he's also very strong when it comes to reaching your properties, and you will see in this game just how much I utilize the power of transports. Sensei probably also has some of the best powers in the game. His normal power copter command is ridiculously cheap at only 2 stars, and it summons 9 HP infantry in every single available city that he controls. And this is just ridiculous in smaller scale matchups, because the amount of extra infantry that this gives you is incredible. And sure, they're at 9 HP, but they're still stronger than regular infantry since they're +40%. And the amount of stuff that you can do with this is just incredible. You can use them as shields, you can attack with them, you can capture with them, you can just overwhelm your opponent with a sea of fodder. In addition to that, Copter Command also increases the firepower of his battlecopters by quite a considerable amount. I think it sets it up to 60 or 80%, I don't remember right now, but it is quite ridiculous. And if you actually save up for his superpower, Airborne Assaults, you get 9 HP mechs in every single one of your cities instead, which is even more ridiculous. These mechs are incredibly strong. Doesn't matter that they're at 9 HP, they will still do a crap ton of damage. You can also combine them together to get money, which is a little trick that you can utilize if you're close to hitting the unit cap. And when you play a Sensei, you are actually very likely to hit the unit cap of 50 units. Now, Advanced Wars by Web does allow you to increase this unit cap if you so desire, but you should never allow a Sensei player to do this. If you're up against a Sensei player and he proposes to like change the unit limit to 100, do not let him do it, because he will actually very realistically hit this goal. So yeah, Sensei absolutely busted the CO. However, as far as busted COs goes, there are few that can rival Kanbei. Now, Kanbei is ridiculous. He pays 20% more to deploy his troops, which is a pretty steep penalty. However, in return, he gets a 30% firepower and defense boost, which is just incredible. I mean, his units just don't die. They are absolutely broken. Like, trying to take even engagements against Kanbei is pretty much impossible. Sure, he will have 20% less troops than you, but his troops just never die. And when they never die, they will eventually accumulate up to a critical mass and he'll just overwhelm you. It is incredibly tough to go up against Kanbei. His normal power morale boost is not super strong. It's pretty expensive at 4 stars and it only really increases his firepower, so you shouldn't really pop this unless you really need the firepower increase. What you really want to do is save up for his superpower Samurai Spirit. It increases firepower and defense to the point where it's almost impossible to deal damage to his troops, and in addition to that, it also increases counterattack firepower by 50%. It's kind of like activating GameShark cheat codes for a turn. You just don't want to touch his units, which can be incredibly devastating, especially if he goes for some captures. So when playing against Kanbei, you definitely want to make sure that your cities are guarded whenever he pops the Samurai Spirit, so he can't just walk on top of them and start capturing. but yeah, he is incredibly tough to deal with. But let's see how this matchup goes. Now, the map that we are playing on is called Everything I Am. I decided to pick sort of like a small to medium-sized map. If you pick a really large map as Sensei, he actually becomes progressively stronger the more properties there are. He's kind of like Kindle in a way, because, you know, for every property that he controls, he gets a free infantry or a mech from his powers. So I decided to pick a map with not that many properties on it, but at the same time, I didn't want to pick a map with just like 5 or 6 properties, because Kanbei does actually struggle on very small maps because he just can't afford his units. Kanbei really enjoys sort of like the medium to large scale maps because he does want a sort of like an economy going. However, one thing that I think a lot of people underestimate with Kanbei is that his capture phase is actually incredibly strong. Because yes, while his infantry cost 20% more, they only cost 1,200, which isn't really that much. But they get a 30% firepower and defense increase, which means that whenever they're on a city, their defense goes up by 60%. That makes it very hard to interrupt Kanbei's captures. Even for a CO like Sensei, that has a 40% firepower increase, he still struggles to deal damage to his Kanbei infantry whenever they're on a city. So you will see just how strong Kanbei is in the capture phase here. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us jump into the first turn. So on this map, both players actually start with infantry on their bases. However, player 2 starts with 2 infantry, as opposed to player 1 who only starts with 1. So I'm playing as player 1 right here, and I just immediately start going for the captures. His turn rolls in, and he also decides to go for the capture immediately. He goes for the property instead of the airport, which I think is a little bit of a weird move. Like, if you can choose between an airport and a property, surely you should go for the property first. Maybe his rationale was the fact that he's playing Kanbei, so he won't really be able to afford an early game transport copter anyway. So he might as well go for the city rather than the airport. I don't know. And he builds infantry again. Most of these early turns are just going to consist of infantry and capture, as is the case with most Advanced Wars early game. So yeah, he just continues to go for properties. Both of us are taking a relatively economic approach here and just capturing properties in our vicinity rather than like darting for properties in the center. I, on the other hand, I'm actually sending 1 infantry into the center to try and get some of the more contested properties. Our HQs are also very exposed in the middle here, so there's definitely some opportunity for sneaky HQ caps. So now, Kanbei does decide to go for the airport. There are also 2 comm towers on the map, which I didn't touch upon. They're relatively contested, actually, because both players can reasonably try to grab both of them because they're in the corners. Now, of course, Kanbei will get this comm tower, and I will get this comm tower, but still, if you completely neglect the sides, then your comm tower will probably get taken. You have to be very careful about that. I do like it when maps do this. I think that comm towers should be placed in a location where they can be reasonably attacked, because if the comm towers are situated in the back lines, then they pretty much just become a property you capture, and then you're just gonna have to play a match where both sides have 10% increased firepower, which I don't like. I think that if there should be comm towers on the map, they should be contested. They should be something that both players will fight over, because then it means that you can't just neglect the corners. You can't just rush the middle. If you neglect the corners and rush the middle, then your opponent will take both comm towers and he will win. So this is definitely something I think map designers should take into account when deciding to put comm towers on their maps. So he decides to go for an early game recon, which is very rare. In my experience, most Kanbei players just tend to rush infantry until they're forced to respond with something. But he decides to go for an early recon, and this does make sense because he's up against Sensei, so there's going to be a lot of infantry around. So I do see why he decides to do this. So here, I immediately go for an early game transport, and I think this is definitely something you should do as Sensei. They have +1 extra move, which makes them really strong, and you just want to be building a lot of mechs and infantry as Sensei, so having a transport that can continuously ferry them into the middle is going to increase your value by a lot. Mechs on their own are quite slow, and they're not really going to reach the middle in time to be effective, so having like a transport copter that is just continuously transporting mechs into the center as Sensei is very strong. And as Sensei, you definitely want to mech spam. I mean, I'm up against Kanbei, it's not like I'm not going to take advantage of the insane toolkit that Sensei has. So I start building a mech and I go for the comm tower immediately, and I start capturing some more properties. Now he also continues to capture. Let's see what he does with his recon. He actually sends it into the forest, which is... I don't really know why he does this. Like, I would have just... Personally, I would have sent the recon along the road, because... There's no need to hide your recon right now. There's no way I have any units nearby to scout it. So honestly, just send your recon down there, and then you can focus on maybe hiding it in this forest next turn or something like that, or maybe this forest. There's no need to play it this sneakily with your recon. Although I do understand why he wants to hide it. So he builds an APC, which is even more surprising. This is something most Kanbei players just don't tend to do. APCs and transport copters as Kanbei is just an incredibly expensive investment. Now, I'm not going to say it's a bad move, because getting some transports out and getting your infantry into the center is very good. It's just, most Kanbei players just don't tend to spend money on this in the early game. Because again, those APCs are just so incredibly expensive. So I load my mech into the transport copter here, and I continue capping my properties. I go for the com tower. And here I decide to do something. I actually send my mech towards the com tower. Now my idea is to take this city and then maybe to try and take this com tower. I estimate here that Kanbei is not going to build transports, because most Kanbei players just don't tend to do that. And so I think that, maybe I can apply some pressure on the com towers and take both of them. That would actually be pretty cool. That would definitely give me an advantage. So his turn rolls in, and once again he's being very stealthy with his recon. He's going from forest to forests. I do think this is alright. I mean, yes, he played very, very defensively at first, but I guess he was just playing overly safe. But right now, he has a lot of vision on the area. He'll be able to interrupt some caps, so... And I still don't know that the recon is coming. And he sends his APC down, which, again, I just did not expect this. This move... Alright, we have to review this move. You guys remember that? Remember what I said about wagon movement and war groove, guys? Do you remember my war groove beginner mistakes? Alright? So... look at what he's doing right here, okay? Very important. Let's take a look at what he does with this APC. A massive mistake right here. So he moves his APC like this, and then he loads his infantry in. Don't do this. Never, ever, ever do this, okay? So I know it's just 1 point of movement, but what he could have done is he could have moved this APC all the way down there, and then he could have moved this infantry down there instead, and on the next turn he could have loaded in and then moved. Never, ever, ever load your infantry into your APC as the last action of your turn. If you're doing that, you're better off delaying the load and waiting for next turn. So by doing this, he's essentially limiting the movement of his APC. He had to put his APC down there, and there's no point loading your infantry into an APC at the end of your turn. You can do it at the start of your next turn, and you won't lose any actions doing so. He could have had this APC down here instead, moved his infantry down here, and he would have been one spot closer to the south. Now, in this situation, the map is so small that it doesn't really end up mattering. I mean, I'm sure that he intends to load his infantry off in the mountains or something like that, so at the end of the day, this didn't really matter that much. But as a general rule of thumb, you always want to utilize the maximum range of your APC. You never want to slow down your APC to load an infantry into it. Just move your infantry at max speed, move your APC at max speed, and just ensure that they're within range of each other on the next turn. So, again, just a small mistake here, but something that I definitely want to point out. So he's going for the com towers, which is very smart. He definitely wants to get this com tower really early because, again, there's going to be a lot of infantry engagements on this map since it's a small map, and you definitely don't want to let your opponent get that 10% firepower bonus over you. That's really, really bad. So I go for this capture. I was contemplating going for the com tower, and if I had loaded my mech out on this com tower and actually started or I wouldn't have been able to capture it, but he would have been forced to attack me, and I would have dealt a lot of damage back to him, and I would have delayed his capture by quite a few turns. So I probably should have gone for his com tower, but here, I don't really know what I'm planning to do here with this infantry. I guess I just want to see what he has here, but I should probably be aware that I'm not going to get this property, so I don't really know why I'm doing this. So I move forward. I still haven't spotted his recon. I continue to cap properties, and I send my transport copter back here. This is what you want to do, right? So look at how I'm moving my my transport copter here to get maximum movement out of it. I'm moving it down here. I know that the mech will be able to move 2 squares, load in on the next turn, and then I'll be able to send the transport copter as far as I can to the left and load the mech off. So again, always position your transports in such a way that the infantry will move max range into the transport copter, and then you move your transport copter. That way you utilize every bit of extra movement that you have, and you get maximum value out of your transports. And I build another transport, because here's the thing, I'm going to be building a lot of mechs and infantry in this map, and I need them to be in the center. Yes, it's 10,000 funds that I'm investing early game into transports, but when Sensei infantry are as strong as they are, and mechs are going to be so important in this match, I figured that having 2 transports in the early game is actually going to serve me very well. So I decided to do this, and I build another mech. Yeah, you're gonna see mech spam in this map. This is a Sensei match. If you don't like mech spams, I have bad news for you. I'm playing mech spam the CO. So, or the CEO of mech spam, I guess you should say. So, I don't think I saw this infantry, but again, this move really caught me off guard, because as I said, very uncommon to see Kanbei players go an APC in the early game. So, I did not expect there to be infantry all the way down there, so I was actually very surprised. So here he starts going for his comm tower. Again, I could have interrupted it if I played better. And here he builds a tank, and this is also kind of a surprising move on my end. So tanks against Sensei, I wouldn't really recommend it, at least not in the early game. There's going to be mechs around when you play against Sensei, and those mechs will demolish your tank, even a Kanbei tank. I'd say against Sensei, I would much rather build an anti-air rather than a tank, because the anti-air can defeat both mechs and battlecopters. Tanks, you're kinda just asking to get demolished by a Sensei battlecopter if you build tanks in the early game, so I just would not go tanks. After a while, once you go into the mid to late game, and there starts to be a lot of units going around, maybe you can build some tanks, but in the early game, a tank is a very poor choice against Sensei. I would much rather go a recon or an anti-air. So, it's my turn. Day 6 rolls in. I move my infantry into the mountain to see what I can see. I see that he's starting to capture some properties. I still do not see his recon, so this recon is completely hidden. Very good on him. I start capturing the property because in according to my vision, I don't see this recon, so I'm like, oh, this is a free capture right here. And I start going for the city, and this is where I see his APC and his infantry, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is actually really bad. He might go for my comm tower right now, and I'm gonna have to delay this capture to interrupt the comm tower, which is, I was not happy about this. I really did not expect to find an APC and an infantry this far south. So I move my mech into the battlecopter, and look at this. Look at these battlecopters right here, or these transport copters. Nyum. Oh, so nice to see Sensei transports just rushing those mechs headlong. I love it. So much fun to play. And here I decide to, again, whenever you can, definitely load your mechs and infantry off into mountains to get vision. Like, you want to get as much scouting info on your opponent, and with Sensei, you really don't want to waste money building recons, so you really want to rely on those mechs in mountains to scout your opponent. Again, there's just, I don't have that many bases, and infantry and mechs are kind of cheap, which means that they take up a lot of my base capacity. So if at all possible, I want to build mechs and infantry on all my bases. I don't want to waste time building recons, and that's why having mechs and mountains will be the primary method that I will use to scout. So I continue capping, or I finish capping my city. This is definitely one of his cities, so the longer I can hold on to this, the longer I will have an advantage. And I continue to cap. Right now I have a slight income lead over him. And here comes the first battlecopter. Again, Sensei, definitely expect him to build a battlecopter very early on. He is going to spend a lot of his bases on infantry, so he's going to have a lot of leftover money just to spam battlecopters. So definitely prepare your anti-air accordingly. He has a recon, a second recon, and a tank right here. He asked me in DMs after the match, like, if I had any criticisms of his playstyle, and I will definitely say here, this is not the proper playstyle against Sensei. Recons and tanks, this guy is kind of playing like a regular normal CO against another normal CO. I think this is the problem. He's not adjusting his playstyle accordingly. First of all, he's building early game transports, which is very weird to see when you're playing against Kanbei. I'm not saying it's a bad move, I'm just saying it's very unusual. And second of all, he's not really building the units that he needs to build to win right here. He's not building anti-air, he's not building anti-air. I mean, that's really about it. At this point, it's day 7, build a goddamn anti-air against Sensei. You're going to need it. And 2 more mechs, because, you know, I'm Sensei. I'm mech spam. So, at this point, he's using his APC to scout, which is actually pretty clever. And here, he does the predictable move. He goes for my comm tower. I was very angry when I saw this, because I was like, man, he might actually get that comm tower. That would be really bad for me. Here comes the recon out. It interrupts my cap. My mech is not in range to deal with it. I was very sad about that. And in comes his second recon. He's pushing really hard on the comm tower right now, which is kind of fun to see. And here, finally, he decides to build an anti-air. Should have built it 1 turn ago, but hey, better late than never, I guess. And his tank goes into the center. I don't really know what he plans to accomplish with this tank. I mean, what is this tank good against? Like, what is this tank going to do? The only unit it can realistically shoot at are my infantry. It's not going to go up against my mech. It's not really going to do a lot of damage to the transport copter, and it's not going to do any damage to the battlecopter. So this tank is just a glorified recon right now. That's all it is. So here, of course, I have to interrupt this cap, and look at that. Just look at that. This is a Sensei infantry, okay? This is a Sensei. He is forcing me to take the engagement on roads, which is very bad for me, but just look at this. This is an infantry with 40% extra firepower. Dealt 3 HP of damage, took 7 back. I mean, how disgusting is that? This is just such a good example of how much better defense is than firepower. Because defense, this infantry has 60% increased defense right now. So let's do some quick math, right? I have 40% extra firepower, right? So 55% plus 40%, that'll roughly put the value up to about, let's say, around 70%, right? And then he reduces that amount by 60%. So that goes down to like 20 to 30%, right? So it doesn't matter how much extra firepower you have, defense in high quantities will always be better than firepower because it's a flat reduction in damage, right? So even though I am playing as an infantry specialist, my infantry still gets demolished even when getting the first strike because Kanbei infantry just has so much defense when on properties. Luckily though, I do have several infantry in the vicinity, and I probably will be able to interrupt this cap, but still it scared me quite a lot. And here, once again, you can see I'm moving my transports back just in range of my mechs, so my mech can move 2 spaces next turn, and then I'll be able to utilize all the transport movement. So again, really important to pay attention to the way I move my transport copters here if you want some pointers on how to utilize your transports. And here, I decided to send my battlecopter north because I realized chances are probably high that he has anti-air here, but he probably doesn't have that many anti-air here, and I was very right in this guess. So this battlecopter will basically have free reign until he decides to build an anti-air. So I continue to go ahead. I decided to actually attack him here. I didn't know that he had an infantry here at this point, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to try and get his comm tower. So I'm going to apply some pressure here. But just look at how disgusting this is, man. He's still standing. It's 2 Sensei infantry. It doesn't matter. And here, I actually decided to move my transport copter back on the airport, and I build another mech. The reason why I did it this way is because, well, I couldn't move it here because there's a sea here, but I am going to run out of fuel on my transports eventually because they're going to be moving around a lot, and unless I want to build an APC, I actually have to take care to occasionally place them on top of my airport, and in this situation, I lose nothing by doing so, and I'll get some extra fuel back. So I was like, okay, I'll take the extra fuel when I can get it, because these transport will actually run out of fuel at some point. But I actually decided to build an APC here. And the reason why is because, you know, I see his recons, I see his APC, I realized that I'm going to need a lot more mechs to deal with this. And again, with Sensei, definitely invest into a lot of transports, because your mechs are so powerful, but the one thing they need is mobility. The one thing they need is to get to the front lines. So definitely, I don't think it's a bad idea at all to go 3 transports in the early game and just rush those mechs out into the center. The more engagements you can take with the mechs, the better it is for you. They're so cost effective. So I actually pull back a little bit here. I decide to play a little bit more defensively. I don't want to rush into the Kanbei meat grinder. So here he decides to send his infantry towards me, and he pulls his infantry back, and he builds another tank. This is such a bad move. Anti-air, my friend. Anti-air. That's what you need in this situation. A battlecopter is coming. This tank is not going to do shit. You need anti-air. Anti-air is the only, reasonable response you have against Sensei mechs and battlecopters. This tank, not going to do anything. So yeah, he's making a lot of build order mistakes in this match right now. So pushing forward and takes on my infantry. He actually decides to forego his cap, which I do understand. That's a smart move on his end. I don't know what he's doing with this APC. I mean, I see that he's blocking my city, but here's the thing. This infantry is on 4 HP. It's not going to capture anything. At this point, you are using a... I mean, how expensive is a Kanbei IPC? It's like 6,500, I think, or something like that. Yeah, it's something along those lines. It's like I think it's like 6,000, isn't it? Yeah, 20% more expensive. Yeah, 6,000. So you're spending a glorified 6,000 gold, or you're spending 6,000 gold on a glorified roadblock right here. Send this APC back and use it to transport infantry. You've invested a lot of money into it. It doesn't do anything good just blocking a city. I'm not going to take it anyway because my infantry is damaged. So definitely utilize this transport. He's not utilizing this transport at all. He used it to scout, and then he used it to block, when he could have been using it to ferry infantry to the front lines. And he needs infantry on the front lines, because those Sensei infantry are going to hit him really hard. So again, he moves his infantry or his tanks forward. He has 2 tanks right now that aren't really going to be doing a whole lot. My turn rolls in. I decide to just, you know, I'm not going to be able to cap the city. All right, I'll cap this city instead, I guess. And here comes the APC. Again, always load your mechs out into mountains whenever you can. I decide to keep capping. I know this cap is going to get interrupted, but I positioned this mech here on this mountain, so I'm basically telling him, okay, you want to send your recon forward and interrupt my cap? Well, have fun taking a 40% mech to the face next turn. So I'm basically forcing him to use infantry to interrupt this cap now, because he does not want to move his recon into range of my mechs. He definitely does not want to do that. So once again, here comes the battlecopter. I am expecting him to sort of have an anti-air here, but imagine if he had one here already. He'd be able to move it in next turn and so on my battlecopter. But since he built a tank instead, he is now forced to let my battlecopter harass him for one extra turn. So once again, I start going for his comm tower. I'm not letting up the aggression. This mech gets an excellent shot at his infantry. It's also positioned on the mountain, so I'll be able to see whatever he sends at me. And yeah, I use my transports again to send more mechs to the front lines. And here, I just build a bomber, because I'm like, okay, so he's gonna build an anti-air at some point. I know he is, so I'm just gonna have a bomber ready for it. Now, Sensei doesn't get extra firepower on his bombers, but he doesn't get a reduced firepower either. His air units are 100%, so yeah, I'm just expecting him to get an anti-air out, and my hope is that once he reveals his anti-air, I'll be able to send my bomber in and just demolish it. Now, of course, he's Kanbei, so the anti-air is going to be tough to take down, and if it's on a city, I definitely don't want to attack it. But if he puts it out in the open, I can definitely take it out. So I build more infantry, and then once again, just utilizing my transport to their maximum capacity. Look how I'm using them to just like rush troops out on the front lines right here. So his turn rolls in. He goes for the capture with his infantry, which is, you know, to be expected. But look how many mechs I have right now. I mean, that anti-air is not going to do shit in this area. And he moves his tank forward, being very cautious with it. I guess he just doesn't want my battlecopter to take it out, which just makes sense. And he gets himself trapped again, using his APC to scout. Why? You have a recon. I know this recon is going to die, but like, why? Send the APC back and get more infantry. Why are you using it like this? This is a very expensive APC that's not doing anything. And yeah, sending his recon in to attack my mech in the mountain. Not a great engagement on his end. Sure, he dealt 5 HP of damage to my mech, but he took a lot of damage on his recon. Not really a good engagement. And look at this, there's another mech ready to take its place that can just move into the mountain and finish off the recon. So yeah, no, this is not good. Takes down my mech, but again, look, I have 2 mechs in range of his recons next turn. This is going to hurt him a lot. So he continues capping the city. He attacks my infantry. And he builds a battlecopter, which, again, yeah, maybe? I don't really know. I mean, sure, it's a Kanbei battlecopter. It's quite strong, but if I have a battlecopter ready, then, and I get the first strike on this battlecopter, it's gonna die. So I would perhaps instead just focus on anti-air in this situation. My turn rolls in, and I just start to mop up most of his forces in the area. And by the looks of things, I'm going to get that comm tower soon if he doesn't do anything. I get myself trapped here, which is kind of funny. I don't really know how I was able to do that. But I decided to actually use my transport copter here to load out an infantry and block him off. I really want to get this comm tower. And unless he does something, I will actually be able to get it. Now, he does have a tank here, but it's not in range. He needs to clear away this infantry first. Let's see if he's actually able to do that. I move my bomber in. I'm like, okay, bring on the anti-air. I got a response ready for it. And here, first recon taken out. Boom. And once again, just sending my APC back. Positioning them in such a way. Look at this. I'm placing my transport copter right here, so this infantry will be able to move max move next turn and then get transported. And I just build more mechs and battlecopters. The Sensei playstyle, man. So right now, if we take a look at our value, I have a pretty big value lead over him. He hasn't built units yet, though, but I do have a nice income lead in terms of properties. So he definitely needs to do something to turn this around. Very important that he does that. But in comes the anti-air, and it does shoot out my transport, which is very good on him. And he's using his tank to interrupt my capture. So he did prevent me from taking this, which I'm pretty, like, that was a pretty good move on his end. His tank was actually kind of useful. However, look at the troops in his vicinity next turn. It's going to hurt him quite a lot. So he goes for my cap, which is very important. And again, he's using his tanks pretty cleverly here. I was surprised to see that he had 2 tanks in this area. I did not expect him to have that. And you can see, like, he's fighting back pretty hard. I mean, Kanbei is tough to fight, man. His units are incredibly strong. So this turn actually was pretty good on him. And at this point, I realized that, you know, this is going to be a pretty tough fight. And yeah, here is another build order mistake here. You never build missiles. No, just the only time you should build missiles against Sensei if you're playing as Colin, okay? Because they're so incredibly cheap. Kanbei missiles? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. How much do they cost? It's like 14 or 15,000 to build a missile as Kanbei, they're just not worth it. Build anti-air, my man. Even with that 30% extra defense, those missiles are still going to get demolished by battlecopters and mechs. Just build anti-air. Never build missiles as Kanbei. Missiles can be pretty good if you can zone out, like if you can put them in such a way where they're zoning out an enemy airport, they can be really strong. And as I said, Colin also utilizes missiles really well because they still one-shot air units even with that 10% reduced firepower. But as Kanbei, this is just way too expensive an investment. Sure, one aspect to missiles that most people tend to overlook is their insane vision. They have 5 vision, which is as much as a recon. So they're actually pretty good scouts, but they're still not that good. So, yeah, my turn rolls in, and behold, the disgusting power known as Copter Command. The first thing, of course, I do is I move my infantry away from the cities. So, always make sure you're not blocking your own cities whenever you pop Copter Command. And boom! Let's just look at that again, okay? How disgusting is that? Let's look at that again. I mean, just look at this again, okay? 18 troops? 33 troops! I mean, how disgusting is that? I forgot how broken Sensei is, man. I mean, just look at the amount of extra presence that I just got on the map. I can't get over how ridiculous that is. Let's watch it again. I mean, just look at that. Just look at it. Oh my god, it's so disgusting how good this power is. 2 stars, ladies and gentlemen, is as cheap as Colin's Gold Rush. You know what? I might have placed Sensei in the wrong tier. I'm actually considering him being worthy of an S-rank tier CO. Can Sensei go up against Hachi? That might be a match that I have to try out now, because this is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, in comes the bomber, and look at that. Boom. Doesn't matter that you're a Kanbei anti-air, my friend. And I actually decide to shoot it down with my battlecopter, because I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get rid of your anti-air. The 3 HP anti-air kind of still hurts, even when it's on Kanbei, so... of course, I don't really have any responses for the tanks now, but I'll deal with them later, it's fine. So yeah, in marches the swarm of infantry. Just look at how many infantry I have on the map right now. What is he gonna do against that? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I still have 2 transport copters, or 1 transport copter and 1 APC, just continuously ferrying infantry to the front lines. It is absolutely ridiculous how many units I have on the field right now. Look at that, 90,000 to his 67,000. 36 units to Kanbei's 16. So he moves his missile forward, he'll probably hoping he's gonna get some good value out of this, but you'll see just how easy it is to exploit missiles next turn. So, but he's doing a good job interrupting my caps, and he's building anti-air, which is good on him. I definitely commend him for doing that. Moving his anti-air out of range of my mechs, very good on him. And in comes the Sensei battlecopter. I do realize that I need some kind of response to that now. And again, what is he doing? I mean, it really annoys me how he's utilizing his APC. So look what he's doing. Look what he's doing with his APC. This is like the most worthless APC ever. He has a 3 HP infantry, all right, and he decides to use his APC to move 2 spaces back and put it off on the city. I think it didn't really update here. I'm gonna do this one more time. Why? Why? Send your APC back and use it to fetch more infantry. You need them right now. You need every single infantry that you can get. Here he builds an artillery. I don't really know what he's hoping to accomplish with this artillery. There's a million infantry coming towards you now, my man. You need recons and anti-air. Also, there's a little bit of a bug here. There's an infantry hidden behind the artillery. This is just a visual bug. It will go away once we refresh, I think. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, he's about to get his samurai spirit though, so I do need to press my advantage while I have it. But yeah, I mean, just look at the sea of fodder that is traversing towards him right now. And I am just dominating the area around his comm tower. I am really hell-bent on trying to get this down. I start capturing it, and here, I'm actually like, whoa. You know, I moved my bomber in here, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even realize there was a missile here, but accidentally I end up moving it right into his minimum range. Of course, I didn't realize there was an anti-air here at the time, but I was very happy. I was like, oh man, he actually has a missile. That's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter that Kanbei has strong units, because just look at the sea of fodder that is just moving towards him right now. How is he going to deal with all these units? And look at that, I almost have my copter command ready again. It is absolutely incredible. It is absolutely incredible. I mean, just look at the units that I have. The map presence I have alone is baffling. But he does get a really good shot on my bomber this turn, which is very good on him. And he's also doing a very valiant job of interrupting my capture on his comm tower, so he really doesn't want to give me that. But again, this is just another weakness of the missile. Just it has such low mobility. It has 5 move when it moves on tires. It cannot move anywhere. And look at that, both my battlecopters are within range of it next turn. Sure, he has an anti-air, but this missile, like, I can throw a battlecopter at this missile happily because it's worth so much. A 9,000 worth battlecopter against like a 15k worth missile is definitely a good trade for me. So I don't mind sacking one of my battlecopters to take down that thing. Absolutely not. So I will say though, he's doing a pretty good job pushing me back. He's almost got his Samurai Spirit. I don't know why he's pulling his battlecopter back. This was another really weird move on his end. I'm guessing he thinks there's a battlecopter around here, but actually there isn't. So again, if he hadn't sacked his recon from earlier, he would have been able to scout that. If he had more infantry in the mountains, he would have been able to scout that. Imagine if he used this APC, instead of using it in the way he's been using it for the past 5 days, imagine if he'd been using this APC to continually ferry infantry into the mountains. He would have had 5 vision, he would have been able to see that there's not a single anti-air or a battlecopter in this vicinity. So this battlecopter actually has free range to do whatever it wants. It's a super valuable battlecopter. But because he sacked his recon, because it doesn't use his APC, he doesn't have vision, and as a result, he doesn't know what to do with this battlecopter, so he pulls it back because he's scared that he might lose it. Again, if he had vision, and again, what is he doing? I mean, I guess at this point he is sending his APC back. I think that was actually a bug. Let me redo this entire turn, because if you go back, the replay will bug out sometimes. Yeah, he's sending his APC back, and this time I will actually take back what I said. This is the right thing to do. Now he's finally going to use this APC to get more infantry, which is what he should have done like 5 turns ago. But yeah, my turn rolls in, and would you look at that? My copter command is ready again. Again, gonna move off the cities, and boom! It's so disgusting! Oh my god, 48. I'm about to hit the freaking unit cap. And just look at this! What? Honestly, I don't know what he's gonna do against that. I don't actually know if it's possible to beat this. Like, what is he gonna do? I'm just gonna start capping his properties right now. I mean, just look at the sea of fodder that moves towards him. Like, he doesn't have the units to deal with this. It's kind of like watching a Zergling rush in StarCraft, you know? A Zergling rush against a Protoss player on one base. Now, his turn rolls in, and he does pop his Samurai Spirit. So for one turn, he is going to be incredibly effective, and he shoots down my battlecopter, which is pretty good on him. Takes down my comm tower. And, I mean, for one turn, I am not really going to be able to do anything to him. I mean, look how strong he gets when he pops this power. It's ridiculous. So, you know, I mean, this is a good roadblock that he just put in my way, but it's not going to be enough. I mean, that's it. That's it. I mean, our value is actually comparable, which is disgusting. I mean, 107,000 to 99,000, despite the fact that I have 46 units, he has 17. But the thing is, I just have too many units for him to deal with. It doesn't matter that his units are stronger, because for every unit that he has, I have like 5. So, no matter what happens, I will just be able to roll in and take his caps. Now, I do try to take some engagements against him on this turn, if memory serves. I decide to try and go up against his battlecopter just to see. And I mean, just look at that. Again, let's just replay it. This is a Sensei battlecopter. It has 50% extra firepower. Okay? It gets the first strike on a Kanbei battlecopter. Boom. 2 HP left, 6 HP left. That's the power of Samurai Spirit, ladies and gentlemen. I still decide to go for the attack because I just have so many more units there. Yeah, this is like mech against recon on city. Mech takes more damage than recon. Just Kanbei things, you know? But I can afford to take this engagement because I just have so many more units than him. And I join cap, and I just move forward with a swarm of Zerglings, man. I mean, just watching this replay back, I am actually questioning how anyone could stand against this. At the moment, I am actually playing against a Sensei player as Colin. I am in the middle of the match right now. And I am questioning whether or not I have the ability to survive against that. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, yeah, again, his turn rolls in, and he's doing everything he can to fight against me. But at the end of the day, what is he gonna do? He's killing some units here and there, and he's doing a pretty good job of fighting me back. But for every unit that he kills, 5 more units will pop up. And now he's actually using his APC. He's actually moving forward. Again, don't do this. Don't load your infantry in at the end of the turn. Move this infantry, build another infantry, and then load that infantry in instead. It'll give you more movement at the end of the day, and it's going to be more worth it for you. And, yeah, did he just unload the infantry? Wait a minute. Okay, this is actually something that Advanced Wars by Web really has to fix. Because I'm noticing something that you're not allowed to do here. So look at this, look at this. This is actually something that me and Ponsegraf have been discussing. APCs in Advanced Wars by Web actually needs to be fixed, okay? Look at what he's doing here. He's loading it in. And he's unloading it on the same turn. This is actually something that is incredibly broken and something that they really need to fix. So I don't know if this is like a coding thing, but it turns out that when you load an infantry into your APC, it doesn't deplete its action. You can still unload with it. You can still resupply with it. And this actually allows you to use your APCs in ways which you are not supposed to. So please fix this. I've been noticing, for example, that you're allowed to move your transport in an APC and then actually scout before you unload. This is not something you're allowed to do in Advanced Wars 2. If you move your transport and you try to unload before you get vision, you'll get trapped. But not so in Advanced Wars by Web, so please fix. Anyway, my turn rolls in. I have my copter command ready again, but I don't really know if I want to pop it because I'm at my unit limit. So at this point, I do believe I'm going to save up for my airborne assaults. And I'm just joining my units together here because, you know, why not? There we go. And this is the big mistake with the missile. I mean, this is a Kanbei missile. It has extra defense, but it doesn't matter. It's still going to get shredded. And yeah. At this point, I have an income lead over him. I have a unit lead over him. It doesn't matter. It's like freaking D-Day. I'm just, like, unloading more and more troops at the shoreline until, like, my opponent runs out of ammo, you know? It's just... It's absolutely disgusting. At this point, I am actually contemplating popping my copter command, but I decide to not do it. I go for a fighter. This is another thing you can do as Sensei. Just build fighters and bombers and keep spamming infantry. I build another APC because why the hell not? I mean, I got so many units I need to transport. I figure, you know, why not? And here, Kanbei is doing what he can to try and valiantly stem the tide of Sensei troops, like just washing over his front lines, but... At the end of the day, it's a lost cause. I mean, again, like he's fighting back really valiantly. He's fighting harder than any other CO would have been able to fight. I mean, any other CO would have been overrun at this point, but Kanbei is still fighting. But at the end of the day, he just has no choice but to resign because, I mean, look at him. I'm gonna have my airborne assault ready next turn. That's gonna build like that's gonna bring like about 90 to 20 more mechs into the game. It's gonna make me hit unit cap again. I honestly don't know how anyone can fight against this. I actually think Sensei is S ranked here. It's absolutely, like, watching this replay back, I mean, if you know anything about how powerful Kanbei is, and just see how crushed this guy got, now this was not a very skilled player, he did a lot of basic mistakes, but at the end of the day, once the Sensei spam starts rolling in, how do you fight that? I don't actually know if you can. I need to fight against a Hachi player, playing a Sensei. I'm actually very curious as to who will come out on top. So, yeah. But, you know, I still, while I don't think there was anything this guy could have done to actually fight me, I hope that I at least pointed out enough mistakes in the early game to, I mean, at least teach you some lessons about how to not use your APCs and stuff like that. I think, you know, when playing as Kanbei, you definitely have to, there's just a couple things you cannot do. I'm not saying building an APC early on is a bad move as Kanbei, but I definitely think there are other things you should do. I think more recons and anti-air is always a good idea because you just need to prevent Sensei from capping properties in the early game. And again, never build missiles and rockets as Kanbei. Again, I think rockets in particular is a big wasted opportunity on Kanbei because they're still not strong enough to the point, like the 30% extra defense they get are not going to save them against direct engagements. And with Kanbei, you want to utilize those counterattacks. So again, I don't think building indirects as Kanbei is definitely what you want to do because, again, you want units that can fire back on their counterattacks. So go melee units on Kanbei. Go anti-air, recons, many infantry, and just try to utilize that defense to like as much as you can, basically. But yeah, Sensei is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Looking back at this, I almost feel dirty watching this. That's how broken he is. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this match. It was a lot of fun. Give it a like and a comment. Let me know what COs you'd like to see me play next. And as always, my name is Mangs. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.